Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this Digital Middle Eastern FP&A board. Today we'll be talking about a new age of zero-based budgeting. My name is Hans Gobin, and I am an international FP&A board member, ambassador, and also ambassador at FBNA Trends. And today I'll be facilitating this meeting for you. Just so you know, we are today joined by over 500 people, 70% of which are from the Middle East, 14% from Africa, and the remainder from quite a few other countries. So what do we have in store for you? So let's see. Sorry, the previous meetings. So just for you to quickly read when you get a chance as to what we've done in the geography in Middle East before. In terms of agenda, then, we will be talking about the new age of zero-based budgeting, learnings and successes, evolution of ZBB for FP&A, ZBB to beyond budgeting, what is that change in mindset? And here we'll look at a Kraft Heinz company case study. Then we'll go on to look at how ZBB has changed in uncertain times. Finally, we will look at ZBB technology enablers. We will go on to do conclusions and recommendations, and then we'll finish off with Q&A sessions. It is now a good time for me to introduce to you our esteemed member of the panel. So panelists, if you can join me with your webcam whilst I introduce you to our audiences. So our first member and speaker today is Clara Hoon, International Media Finance Leader at Nielsen. And today, Clara will take us through the evolution of ZBB for FP&A. Clara, great to have you with us today.
Thank you very much, Hans. Hello, everybody. Nice to meet you, and I'll speak to you later.
Thank you very much, Clara. Our second speaker will be Akshat Khandelwal, who's CFO at the Kraft Heinz company. And today he will take us through a case study within his own company, talking about ZBB to beyond budgeting, and also majorly about the change in mindset. Akshat, great to have you with us today.
Thanks, Hans. Great to be here and looking forward to the session today.
Fantastic, thank you. Let's move on to our third speaker, who is Mohammed El Ruby, CFO Middle East Africa at Pharmanovia. And Mohammed will take us through how ZBB has changed in uncertain times. Case study there as well. Mohammed, great to have you with us today.
Thank you, Hans, and it's my pleasure to be here and looking forward to our presentation today.
Fantastic. Last but not least, we've got Andreas Simon, who is Regional Director MIA at Jedox. And Andreas will take us through what are those technology enablers that will help us do better ZBB. So Andreas, great to see you again.
Thank you very much, Hans. Always a pleasure to be here. Looking forward to a wonderful meeting with you.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we've got great panelists as well as great insight to come in the next hour and a half. So please stay with us. Panelists, if you would turn your webcam off, and as I go through housekeeping, and then we will start our presentations. So projects FP&A Trends Group has, as you know, we are in 27 cities, 16 countries and 4 continents. Today we're bringing Dubai and the Middle East and part of Africa together. Also a quick reminder that we have now started doing best practice workshop and FP&A consultancy as well on the demand of our members. What is the Digital FP&A Board? Majorly for those who have not attended before, it is 90 minutes, so please stay with us for the full 90 minutes. We've got 4 great polling questions where we want to learn what you are doing within your organization around ZBB. We also have an interactive Q&A session, so please ask questions via the chat box. Direct it to who you want the questions to be answered by. We will answer a few of them today. Those we can't answer, we will answer via email. So please keep sending them, not a problem at all. Also network with us via LinkedIn. The presentation that I'm going through now is available for you to download in the handouts. Also, you will receive a copy of the recording and the presentation within 2 days after the meeting. So if you can't download today, not a problem. You'll get that by email. And finally, when I close the meeting, there's a feedback session. So please give us another minute or so and give us some feedback as to how we did. But more importantly, what would you like to hear in the next session? So what agenda points you would like us to discuss on there. Our technology sponsor today is JEDOX. We all know JEDOX, Modern Enterprise Performance Management, very smart platform for planning, reporting, and analytics. So thank you very much, JEDOX, for sponsoring this event. I've got a few slides where I want to take you through learnings and successes of ZBB. So I've started off by, a great quote there by 39th President of the USA. If I'm elected, I'm going to institute zero-based budgeting, which assesses every program every year and eliminates those programs. So really a high-profile person getting into politics, wanting to put zero-based budgeting into action. So what is zero-based budgeting? It is a method for developing budget from scratch, or zero-based by examining every cost on P&L and balance sheet item without regards to prior activities. It is not about doing the same with less. Traditionally, we were doing traditional budgeting last year plus. That is way outdated now. Zero-based budgeting has become a zero-based everything now. So it's not just a cost management tool. Now you're talking about zero-based redesign, you're talking about zero-based supply chain, you're talking about zero-based mindset itself, which is where we are calling it zero-based FP&A. It's all about value creation. A few stats to share with you, which comes from Accenture and McKinsey. 300 or so global companies currently using ZBB. It goes back to 2019. So of course, during pandemic and after pandemic, that figure would definitely have increased. Over 90% use them mainly for cost reduction. Over $280 million per year average cost saving. 10 to 15%, 10 to 25% cost reduction after 6-month program. Of course, there are some concerns. Of the 238 companies that announced cost reduction programs, only 26% were able to sustain the reductions for 4 years. It is a constantly evolving process as well, let's not forget that. And only 17% were able to grow at the same time. So we've also got to bear that in mind. Finally, a quick one on what is new ZBB then. Very important, it is not applied only to expenses. It is P&L, balance sheet, and cash flow. It is another method for identifying our key value drivers, rethinking new traditional budgeting process. It is a way of also collaborating and improving business partnering. And also modern technology is making it easy. All of our 4 panelists will take us into quite a bit of detail around all of those points. So rethinking budgeting process, making a right decision, targets and incentive, company culture. Most productive ZBB programs need to be tightly integrated with company strategy as well. We are going to learn about all of this very, very shortly. So moving on now to our first presentation, which will be on evolution. We have with us Clara Hoon, who is International Finance Media Leader at Nielsen. And Clara will talk to us about evolution of ZBB for FBNA. Clara, over to you. Clara, I think you're on mute.
Yes, thank you very much, Hans. And thanks a lot. Hello, everybody. Hi again. Let me talk through the ZBB journey and evolution that we have. As Hans alluded, many years ago, when we first started, it was all about being very, very cost focused. We usually only did it once a year during the budget time. And using that is a very, very detailed justification of all the costs that you have and why you're using the costs. Now, it has really evolved into a lot more as a mindset that we have. things like what is the business model and the robust and agile framework. Let me explain a little bit more on what that means when I say about the mindset, business model, and robust framework, because this is how Nielsen has been going through, especially in the past 2 years or so, when we underwent the whole COVID, and it accelerated the whole thinking about what is ZBB, because what used to be historical information that we knew of would no longer apply for us right now, or even going forward in the future. As you know, many things have changed. Take, for example, basic things like T&E. What used to be, we usually fly to somewhere to meet for meetings, to have some kickoff meetings, to meet clients. Right now, during the COVID year, in the past 18 months or so, there was absolutely no travel by everyone. Borders have been shut down. The way we have operating business, the way we are conducting our internal meetings, and all has completely changed into a virtual mode. So as a result of that, it also created a different way of how we are thinking about it. Let me explain a bit more if we move to the next slide. Let's talk about mindset. What exactly do we mean by mindset? It is really a way of thinking on how you actually approach things. It is not just from a cost perspective, but it is just your entire business on how do you actually do the operation. For example, in Nielsen, the way that has happened is that when we talk about the ZBB concept, we no longer just apply it into our entire expense space, but we apply it into very targeted areas in the expense, but at the same time, we open it beyond expenses. We are looking at it from a revenue perspective. We are looking at it from a resource planning perspective, looking at it from how we are actually operating around the world as well. It has evolved into a whole business model on its own, where everything that we are doing is starting from ground zero in the way of how we are thinking about things. Let me share a little bit more on an example on, say, when I talk about resource planning or smart work in Nielsen. From a resource planning point of view, because we are very heavy on our people, what has happened is that how we actually approach on where we get our skilled talent for the organization has evolved. In the past, it used to be everybody needs to be in the same country or where you're doing things. Now, because of virtual network that is being so strong, it enables us to unlock many different kind of opportunities and exploration of the skill set and talent around the world on what exactly is going to be able to create for us the best skilled workforce in its most efficient manner. Similarly, things like what we call the smart work. This is a term that is unique to ourselves in Nielsen, but essentially, I think the concept is going to sound very similar to all of you. Where and how exactly do we work? Do we actually go into office? Do we not go into office? Do we need to enter into office? Do we conduct virtual meetings? Do we actually go to client's place, vendor's place? The whole concept of how do we actually work and interact with everybody has kind of changed. And from a smart work perspective, what we have done is more of thinking from an operating model. How do we evolve into a system where this hybrid concept works, and what are the parameters that everybody is working with within the hybrid model? Similarly, like for example, in revenue, during the COVID time in the past 2 years, it has already disrupted a lot of your usual revenue stream. Many things has changed along the way. Like for us in Nielsen, the advertising spend has evolved quite a bit as well. As you know, the habits of everybody watching TV and how you're spending the money is very different from pre-COVID and now during the COVID time, and essentially the new norm, as we call it, the post-COVID world. So how do we actually unlock our new revenue stream where there are lost revenue due to COVID? At the same time, it does open up new avenues for us. All of this needs us to rethink about the whole model of how do we actually go chase for the new revenue? How do we ensure that we have growth in the company? And also all this wrap up into how do we ensure the profitability of the company remains strong? So what does that actually mean as well is that from an agility point of view, we do need to build a very strong and robust framework for which we work within. It is more from a guideline-based perspective rather than in the past of how typically people think about target or ZBB, where you give and work out a target and then you just kind of work on the same target all year round. What has happened now is that the agility and the framework that is there to guide us throughout the whole time that we have our budgeting cycle, which is essentially for the entire year's period. But what it will allow us to do is that it gets constantly updated for all the different kind of circumstances that are happening. The rapidly changing kind of environment, the kind of borders restriction, the kind of workforce thing, the kind of safety that you might have for the employees and the associates and the environment that we operate in. So all this keeps changing, and as a result that this framework that we are operating within using the ZBB concept is that we need to be very agile and keep on maintaining and updating it so that it reflects what's the latest environment that you're operating within and what kind of constraints and opportunities that you're also operating within. Let me explain in the next slide on what are the enablers for us to do that, because these are all fairly new concepts for all of us. So if we go to the next slide, a couple of the enablers that we have, can we go to the next slide, Karina? All right. Okay, I think it may not have been showing up yet, but let me just talk through what the next slide is. The first thing that is going to happen is that we will need to have a top management buy-in. We need to ensure that the top management is willing to update this entire approach for the whole organization in terms of the business model. So let me share with you on the Nielsen example. Take for example our revenue and the growth concept. Our CEO sorry, I think the slide has gone off. All right, let me explain a bit more on the management buy-in. Our CEO himself is actually driving the whole concept of how do we unlock the revenue growth. He's kind of pushing and having different discussion with all the different leaders that we have in the organization to determine and brainstorm on what are the new ways of consumer behavior, ways of how the media spend is, the advertising spend is, and actually leading the way in how do we rethink about where are we going to find new avenues of growth, how are we going to ensure that the current revenue of growth is also always staying relevant to the consumers, to all our clients as well. So this kind of management buying is very critical because then it ensures that everybody in the organization is actually willing to take this change and take this new approach of how do we actually think about it from a operating behavior. As a result of that, what it means is that we also need to establish very clear KPIs for everybody. All the team members need to know exactly what exactly is their end game in terms of the performance metrics that they have, and their understanding on how this is being done, as well as what needs to be measured. What it also means is that we will end up doing things like a weekly review. So for example, every week we do a reforecasting of our revenue, of our cost needs, of our resourcing planning needs, in order to ensure that we always capture the latest information of what has changed and what may impact some of the assumptions that we may have made at the start of the year when we created the budget. This weekly review as a result also allows for all the operating leaders around the world to have great transparency in how they will actually be operating within. They all know what are the KPIs. They can see clearly that the KPIs do not change during the time. And this is something critical because this is what I meant by the framework doesn't change in itself. So some of the guiding principles of how you operate in remains the same. But the transparency is that whenever something's happened and we get an update of what it actually means to us in terms of the financial information, in terms of how we might look at some of the assumptions again, that is where this weekly review concept allows the transparency for every single leader to be able to see what exactly is going on, as well as where it stands and how do we actually move forward. These kind of reviews are also very critical and important, and the transparency as well makes it much easier for everybody to move along with the execution of the entire plan and ensure that we have a good shot at hitting the overall year-end plan. What all this also wraps up is that there needs to be a lot of creativity as a result that is coming through the system. A lot of creativity from all the different associates as they work with things. So take for example, in the T&E side. In the past, we used to have T&E that is spent because we have a lot of internal meetings that needs to happen. Everybody needs to go out and visit our clients. We need to always be, flying all around the world working on things. The past 18 months of staying home for part of the time is that everything is being done virtually. And as a result of that, how the different team members are now thinking of creative ways in order to engage their own team members, in order to engage the clients, have also been taking shape differently. I'm sure it also applies to many of you on the call because things like, Zoom parties, Zoom team meetings, Zoom team events have always been happening. I've seen a lot of articles talking about it and friends also sharing about it. And these are some of the examples of the creativity that can flow through in how you think. Now, applying this, it also means that how we actually do the operating framework on a wider scale, whether it's from your revenue perspective, your sales driven, your logistic, things are all going to be the same kind of creativity juice that will have to come through in order for people to be able to figure out how the new way of this operating model might work, which then entails in essence the ZBB concept and mind frame that we are talking about. With this, let me hand you back to Hans.
Clara, thank you very much. Great presentation there. Lots of good stuff. For me, there was, it's not about cost only. Revenue is quite a bit of what you've talked about, and you also talked about agility, which is very, very important. One of the key things to kind of think about, and it's a constantly evolving process. Let me ask Akshat and Mohammed to join us and give us some comments, please. So, Akshat, if I may start with yourself.
Sure, Hans. Clara, first of all, for the presentation. It's quite insightful, especially I think the mindset part is very, very relevant right now. And it's also very interesting to see, how the concept of ZBB, which was always thought about cost management, is going to other areas of the business or the P&L, from revenue management to KPI management and so on. So very insightful. Thank you.
Thank you, Akshat. And Mohammed, can I ask for your comments, please?
Yeah, thank you, Clara, for the great presentation. I believe it showed a very good example of transforming the FP&A from being a traditional FP&A to the XP&A, moving the mindset of FP&As from focusing only on expenses and on cost saving into the whole business areas, and moving to focus on all the supply chain and all the supply model and all the business model aspects. So it's a great example of moving our mindset from just focusing on cost to the whole business model. Thank you, Clara.
Fantastic. Great example there. Thank you, both of you. And Clara, thank you very much for a great presentation. Let us now move on and listen to what our audience have got to say as far as what they're doing in this sort of space. And I'm going to launch my first polling question. Please, if you can vote. So you will now see on your screen, how would you describe your experience with ZBB within your organization? Is it non-existent? You're not even thinking about it? Theoretical? Yes, you're thinking about it. Successful and practical experience. So you've implemented it and it's very successful. And finally, we have, but it doesn't really work that well. So we've still got quite a bit of work to do. If you can vote, please. So first one, non-existent. Second one, we're thinking about it, theoretical. Third one, we've done it, it works very well. And what about, we've done it and it doesn't work at the moment, so we've still got a bit of work to do. Thank you very much. I'm now going to close the voting, and I'm going to share it with everyone. So 16% said they don't have it, they're not even thinking about it. 34% said, yes, we are thinking about it, but we haven't done it yet. 45% have got very good, successful, practical experience, so they're actually doing it. And 5% say we've done it, but you know what, it doesn't work that well. So Clara, can you give us some comments as to what we're seeing here, please?
Sure, Hans. Well, it's good to know that 45% of you have a successful practical experience, because this really shows that ZBB can actually work and operate across multiple different countries and industries as well. For the 50% where it's either non-existent or theoretical, I do hope that this session, after 1.5 hours, you will be able to take away something and see if you can implement it, and hopefully, in the next round, you turn into part of the 45% statistic on successful practical. For the unsuccessful, I'm not sure if you might be too harsh on yourself, but it's only 5%, so it's probably hopefully something that you can learn from this session and be able to turn it into a successful practical experience for you and your organization as well.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Clara. Great stats here. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for that. Just before we move on to our next session, I'd like to remind you that please, you can keep sending your questions to us, and we will answer them, most of them today, if not by email. So do that via the chat box. So let's now move to our case study for today, or one of our case studies. And to present that, we've got Akshat Khandelwal from Kraft Heinz Company, who's CFO there. And today he'll take us through his case study, mindset changes, and what is it about ZBB that is going beyond budgeting. Akshat, great to have you with us. Over to you.
Thanks, Hans, and hi, everyone. I'll try and simplify a bit, this hype around ZBB and, what we've done in Kraft Heinz over the past few years about embedding ZBB in the organization. In very, very simple words, ZBB is converting your non-working spending into working spending. What do I mean by non-working spending? Anything that doesn't really drive business growth for you, whether it's your revenue, whether it's your number of customers, whether it's your number of brand impressions, whatever is the KPI that you're looking at. If it's not driving that, we consider that non-working. And if it drives that, we consider that working. And the objective of ZBB is really to convert between the two. But the question is, how do we do it? And in the next slide, I kind of explain to you the key pillars that you need to think about while implementing ZBB in detail. First, which I think everyone knows by now, is budgets are not connected to prior spending. So we don't take a growth rate and assume add cost on top of that. But more importantly, we build it bottom up, and the burden of proof is on justifying the costs, not really eliminating them. So it's not to say I need to cut this cost, but to say, why do you really need this cost? The second one is to focus on strategic initiatives. Every company, organization has a plan that they want to achieve X, Y, Z. So most of your funding should be going to that plan. In our case, it's a lot about investing in marketing, R&D, people. So that's where a lot of our funds go. The other one is ownership mindset throughout the business. This means that ZBB shouldn't be only about a finance exercise or finance responsibility, but people within the business throughout the organization treat the cost or every dollar which is spent as if it's their own money. So they think about it, they say, do I really need to spend this or shouldn't I spend this? And then take a call of it. And then finally, to close the loop, this is all brought together by rigorous monitoring. So, you have reviews, you monitor the cost, you drive accountability throughout the year. So people are really knowing and are aware that someone is looking at the cost spending and how it's happening at a very, very granular level. In the next slide, we kind of talk about what happens and what's the role of FP&A in this. And it's kind of three buckets, which I've listed down. One is drive visibility, manage the budget process. Essentially, this means your results are accurate. People rely on them to view the numbers. You lead the overall budget process because you need to coordinate among different stakeholders, which is, basics FP&A that we always talk about. But the two other things which are more towards XP&A is one, to guide the decision making and enable teams. So support your stakeholders in terms of deciding and clarifying to them where you think you should be reinvesting. Build templates or tools which allow you to benchmark against different places in terms of cost, and challenge every cost to see, is it really working cost or not? And then to drive value, partner with the business to find projects to drive efficiencies. Some costs are always needed. So, but can we go and find a bigger scale to lower down our cost? Or can we go to find an e-auction to make our suppliers compete with each other to lower down our cost? So these kind of mindsets really drive value, not only from a budgeting point of view, but overall, ultimately, to the P&L. But beyond that, the main thing is, how do we bucket our cost? In the next slide, we kind of talk about in Kraft Heinz how we have divided these costs to go into very, very granular level. In very simple words, we have 3 or 4 buckets of cost. One is simple packages, second is commercial packages, third is complex packages, and the fourth is people packages. So people packages is quite clear: your salary, your bonus, etc., cost related. The focus that we emphasize on is on our simple packages, to really ensure these packages where the cost is necessary but sometimes really non-working is minimized. So we do only the stuff that we really need and kind of remove the nice to haves to go back into the commercial working or non-working, which is in our case really marketing or R&D, to make sure our money is spending on product or our money is being spent on consumer overall in terms of marketing. And then to close the loop on all of this, we need a very rigorous management of our complex packages, which is more related to volume. As we grow, we need to spend more on logistics, more on maintenance, and minimize supply chain losses. So step number one to implement ZBB in organization is to have real granularity of cost which is being spent. The step number two, which linking to the previous survey which was sent, a lot of people might have failed or missed out or know the theory of ZBB, is about embedding it in the organization. And in the next slide, I kind of explain to you how in Kraft Heinz we've really done that. So we've created a nice matrix of entity owners, as we call them, or package owners, as we call them. So entity owners are people who own the budget and they decide how to spend it. So this could be your head of HR, this could be your MD, this could be your sales director. They have an ownership of the budget and they are the ultimate decision makers on how to spend it. But we also have a matrix with package owners. So the packages that I listed in the previous slide, the simple packages, the complex, and so on, each package has an owner in the organization. And their job is three things. One is understand the drivers of the spend in the package well and really ensure it's appropriate spending. Challenge during the budgeting process the entity owners about whether this cost is required or not, and if it makes sense. And analyze and benchmarks function. So if you're saying, for example, travel cost, what is my travel cost for a sales organization versus a HR organization? Does it make sense that sales is higher or not? Should HR be higher? Not really. So these kind of benchmarking exercises that you can do across entity owners and package owners really gives you KPIs and challenging points to go back to the business and say, is this cost really necessary? The other thing that you really need to do in the next slide is create strong routines. So a lot of the times organizations go through a ZBB process where they do a budget and they assume, once a year, I've analyzed my cost, I've done a bottom up, project is closed, nothing else should be done. But to really get efficiencies of ZBB, you need to have strong routines beyond that. What I mean by routines is what we call something called monthly ZBB reviews or monthly ZBB days, where essentially all these package owners are coming and presenting to the CEO, the MD, the CFO of the organization to say what has been our cost like for this month, what is the versus budget, what are the key projects that we're still running, I was planning the AOP or budget, what are the projects on top that we're doing, what is the risk happening, etc. So that the package owners have a strong ownership in their cost and they're really treating it as if they have to manage it completely. The other one is continuous benchmarking and continuous areas of idea sharing. Fortunately for us, we are a large organization, so we are able to benchmark versus other BUs or other countries, what key projects they are doing. And if something is good, we kind of implement it in our own business. So these are kind of the strong routines. But I think the most important, one of the most important thing to really embed ZBB and create this cultural mindset in the organization is communication and involving a larger part of the organization. So something that we do very well, the snippet that you see on the left-hand side is a quarterly newsletter on ZBB, which is sent throughout the organization. It's quite catchy in the sense of saying proud to save, hashtag spend smart, and so on. So people kind of read it and see it. And the final thing that we really keep on emphasizing, because sometimes ZBB, when people hear it, they assume cost cutting and there's always a reaction of saying, I don't want to do it. It's to show that we are reinvesting money, whether it's in internal events on people, whether it's a marketing campaign, whether it's new products, etc. So people are aware that if they drive savings, it's getting reinvested in the business on these strategic initiatives. So in summary, in the next slide, the key takeaways for me from a FP&A point of view is we play a very critical role, both in setting up the foundation of ZBB from a technical side, but also driving this cultural mindset required throughout the organization through communication, through challenging, through benchmarking. It is not about cost cutting and it's not about budgeting, but it's about the mindset of converting non-working money into working money and really using it properly. And this is something that we need to keep on re-emphasizing throughout, especially if you're implementing ZBB early in your stages, about the emphasis of reinvesting. Hopefully, this gives you some of the insights that we do in Kraft Heinz. Hans, over to you.
Akshat, thank you very much. Excellent presentation. You know, and for me, what really stuck out was review, and more importantly, the communication aspect, which you took us through in the last slide, in that, you know, with the newsletter, sharing and showing people how you reinvesting, you know, the savings that you're having through within the organization. So thank you very much for that. I would like to ask Mohammed and Andreas to join us and give us some comments on Akshat's presentation. Mohammed, if I may start with you, please.
Yeah, thank you, Akshat. It was a great presentation, and you showed another great example of applying the ZBB budget. What I can see is that we have to split our expenses into small buckets and also ensure challenging every single cost driver. This is a key success factor for ZBB. We have to challenge every single cost driver, and this is also against the traditional way of doing the budget, which is just taking with the whole expenses or the whole total OPEX and multiplied by inflation rate. So to have a successful ZBB budget, we have to split our expenses into every single cost driver. Thank you, Akshat. It was a great presentation.
Thank you, Mohammed. Andreas, comments from you, please.
Yeah, also from my side, thank you very much, Akshat, for that great presentation. I think it's a perfect example, again, about how collaboration is driving budgeting and planning processes in the future. And if you don't have it, then you'll have a big problem. And that should be supported by the technology you're using. Great example for that.
Thank you very much, both of you, for your comments, and thank you, Akshat, for a great presentation. Now, let us go and look at what our audiences are doing. If you switch off your webcam, and let's go and launch our second polling question. And it's very much about change agent, and it's very much about what percentage of ZBB change agents or supporters do you have within your organization? Again, we're talking about culture here. Less than 10%, are people not very happy supporting it? Between 10 and 40%, would you say, you know, majority of people are in the 41 to 70% bracket, or would you say most of the people are? So more than 70% are ZBB supporters. Again, this is to do with culture, collaboration, communications, etc. So less than 10%, 10 to 40%, second option, 41 to 70%. And finally, more than 70%. So if you vote, please, I'll give it another few seconds. I am now going to close it and I'm going to share it. So 23% said less than 10% are supporters within their organization. 43% believe they are between 10 and 40, 21 between 41% and 70, and only 13% say, you know, most of the organization supports the change. If I may ask Akshat to give us an insight on what we're seeing here, please, Akshat.
Yeah, I think good numbers in the sense that a significant proportion, roughly 35% believe 50% or higher roughly are change supporters. I think for me, the key takeaway, especially for the first two buckets, is communication. We've gone through a process in ZBB implementation where it creates a lot of negative vibes about cost being cut and, you know, what is the company going to do. So managing that change management aspect during implementation with communication coming right from the top, the MD really taking it on is really required to make it really successful.
Excellent there. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for voting. And let us move on now to our next presentation. Before that, though, just a quick reminder, keep sending your questions to us. We will answer all of them today, or most of them. If not, we will answer by email. So please keep sending them. So now we will talk about ZBB in uncertain times, and to do that, we've got CFO Middle East Africa Pharmanovia, Mohammed El Ruby, who will take us within the case study, within his company, but also talk to us about risks and opportunities management. So over to you, Mohammed, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Hans. Hello, everyone. Today, I'm going to share with you a very practical business case about how to manage risks during the preparation of the budget. I'm going to share with you a very practical business case I experienced during working in a global pharmaceutical company. And we experienced this business case when we had to start our budgeting process during the starting of COVID-19 or the pandemic time. So at that time, everyone was talking about risks. All functions was raising risks. Supply chain was talking about risks. Commercial, all the other functions was talking about risks. So what is our role as a FP&A? How can we work as a business partners with all functions in order to help our business partners? Number one, identify the key risks area, how to include and put the impact of the risks in our budget numbers, and at the same time, how can we help our business partners to quantify the risks? That's mainly what we're gonna cover during our business case today. So during the starting of COVID-19, all functions raised many types of risks. So I worked as a head of FP&A, as a true business partners with all functions. I sit with supply chain team. I ask them what types of risks, what kind of risks you expect in your business. And in this case, we have to ask our business partners the right questions. We have to understand our business very well. And we have to work like a coach in our organization. We have to ask them the right questions, helping them to identify all the key types of risks. So in the next slide, you can see when I sit with the supply chain team, I created a checklist, asked them about all types of expected risks from supply perspective. So we challenged number one, the manufacturing sites. How long we expected a delay in our orders? What do we expect from every manufacturing sites about COVID-19 impact? How can we mitigate the risks? Also from logistic perspectives, how can we deal with our flight forwarders or sea freights or whatever? Do we expect a delay in our orders? Also from inventory perspective, most of our customers asked for building a safety stock. So how can we manage the logistics obstacles? How can we manage the manufacturing sites delay? At the same time, our customers was asking about building a safety stocks because of the COVID-19 situation, and every customer and every country wants to ensure they have a safety stock of our medicines, of our products. Also, from our customers, some of our customers during the COVID-19, they face a financial risks. Some of them had a financial challenges to collect monies from the market. So how can we deal with all those types of risks from supply perspective? Another example, if we move to the next slide, I sit with my commercial team and with our regulatory team. With our regulatory team and our tender team, also, I checked with them if we already submitted some products for registration. Do we expect a delay in getting feedback from the government or the Ministry of Health in registering our product? How can we mitigate the risk? How can we deal with delaying in our product launches? Also from pricing perspective, in some countries, we was expecting a price change imposed by the Ministry of Health. So due to COVID-19, we did not receive the price change on the planned time. So how can we deal with that? Also, regarding our new launches, how can we deal with our new launches? Do we expect a delay in our launches? So we have to communicate to our customers. We have to communicate to our marketing team. Also, from commercial perspective, if you can have a look on the next slide, we also prepared a very good checklist for our commercial team. So in the next slide, you can see that in our commercial team, number one, they faced a very big issue with COVID-19 due to the inavailability of our team to visit the market. Also, our commercial team was not able to visit hospitals, visit doctors, visit distributors. So how can we manage the risk of having our sales team and the commercial team or not able to visit any customers, not visit to any doctors. So this is one of the key risks we have to manage. Also, the government. Every day and every week we receive new regulations, new change. How can we manage it? Also, our patients, how can we ensure giving and ensuring having the proper safety stock and the proper medicine to our patients? So you can see right now how many types of risks, how many questions we ask our business partner in order to helping them identify and quantify the risks. So this is our role as an FP&A team. FP&A team is the heart inside any organization. We have to understand our business very well. We have to ask the right questions. We have to partner with our business partners in order to quantify and identify the key risks. In the next slide, you can see also how could we quantify the risks. In the previous slides, you saw how did we identify the key risks, what was the right questions we asked it to our business partners, and now we created a very good template in order to quantify the risks. So in the template, we put all the key dimensions for each type of risk. We put what type of products, what type of business unit, what is the expected financial impact of every single expected risks, and what is the probability of the risks. So if we quantify the risk, for example, by 1 million, so what is the probability of it? Is it high or medium or low? So we have to multiply the expected impact by the expected also probability of the risks. And after completing this template, we was able to quantify all the COVID-19 impact before we starting our budget. Before we started our year, we get to know exactly what is the expected impact from COVID-19, from each function, from each product, from each franchise, from each business unit. And this is, I believe, one of the best example of our role as an FP&A to help our business partners to quantify the risks in order to have an accurate budgeting or planning. In the next slide, you can see also our role as a finance. We have to ensure governance. Once we implement any new project, any new template, any new process, we have to ensure governance. And that was the governance that we created for our risk tracker. We started the process by number one, giving orientation to our business partners, explaining to them our risk tracking template. How can we capture all the needed information? How can we quantify it? How to deal with the template? So we started with a very detailed orientation to all of our business partners. Number two, we send the template to our business partners, asking them to ask and to answer all the questions with the probability of the risk in addition to the expected financial impact. Number three, as an FP&A team, we had to collect all the inputs from our business partners from all functions, and then we have to consolidate it and present it in a right way, in the proper way to management, putting the right business drivers, putting the right business story, and then we had to review it with our general manager and with all of our leadership team. Then we made it a consistent meeting on weekly basis. So in weekly basis, we had to review the impact of COVID-19 using that great risk tracker. And it was a very, very helpful tool in order to quantify risks, monitor risks, and capture the risk and include it in our budgeting process. So this, I wanted to share with you this practical case study, and I would like to tell you that this is not only for pharmaceutical industry. You can apply it for any industry. It's all about asking business the right questions and helping them to quantify the risks and present it in a meaningful way. I'm done from my side, and I would like to leave the floor to Hans. Thank you very much.
Muhammad, thank you for great presentation. This is Larissa. I think there are some technical problems with Hans' connection. So I would like to invite all our panelists to switch on the cameras and to give their very quick feedback on Hans' presentation, please. Can we start from you, Clara?
Hi, yes, sure. Yeah, thanks a lot, Mohammed, for your great presentation. It's very interesting to hear how you are doing it in your company and the fact that you have to engage so many different people. And what I really find endearing is that you managed to create a checklist that cuts through so many parts of the business, you know, whether it's regulatory, pricing, logistic, commercial team. So it's really great to see that, you know, the application of ZBB has cut across the entire organization for you. And you even have a checklist to help FP&A determine how to ask the questions in order to get the kind of financial feedback that we could get. Thanks a lot for sharing.
Thank you, Clara. Akshat, would you like to share your experience with your presentation?
First of all, Mohammed, thank you for the presentation. I think for me, the biggest key takeaway is how the role of FP&A is really evolving. You know, from a point of being just managing budgets and so on to being almost like a PMO and a coordinator, really supporting the CFO in driving the business. So the FP&A concept really comes out over here.
Thank you, Akshat.
I know that Hans is here, but I would like to ask Andreas to give the commentary, please.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mohammed, for that presentation. I think, again, it shows how important collaboration communication is, and that data collection is also one of the key points. So a lot has to do with what you need to have in terms of a modern enterprise performance management platform. It's not only the concept, but it's also the support of it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, everyone. Hans, are you with us now? Great. Hans, I believe that it's time for us to look at the polling question, yeah? So while we solving the polling, the technical problems, I would like to ask my assistant to switch on the polling question. So in your view, what is the most significant benefit of the ZBB process? Please, can you vote? Select one of the following. It removes fat from the budgeting. It helps with flexible planning process. It helps to move away from traditional budgeting culture. Or I don't think it has any benefits. Please continue to vote. Just a few seconds. What is the best description? And we are closing the polling question. And we are sharing the results with everyone. Ekaterina, please, can you close and share the results? We can see that actually the majority of you say that it helps with the flexible planning process, 52% of you. 23% said that it removes fat from the budget. 23% say that it helps to move away from traditional budgeting culture. And only 2% of you think that no benefits at all. I would like to ask Mohammed to comment on this.
Thank you, Larissa. I believe the feedback is giving also the current situation and the evolution of the ZBB budget. So we can see 23% saying that it removes the fat, and that's a fact, really. When we apply the ZBB budgeting, it helps us definitely to remove all the unnecessary expenses or all the non-value adding expenses, as mentioned by Akshat, that in his organization, they split the OPEX or the expenses into what is driving revenue and what's not driving revenue. So removing fats is a great benefits of ZBB budgeting. Also 52% saying it helps also with the flexible planning process. Yes, because ZBB is focusing on the key revenue business drivers, not only focusing on every single line. So it's also helping in flexible planning process. Also helping to move away from traditional budgeting culture. Also this 23% seeing that, and this also very valid point. So we are moving to the driving value driver budgeting, or moving to the FP&A, which is moving to the whole business areas, not only focusing on only our cost saving or our financial area. And I believe 2% is makes sense, which is very low percentage. So it's really reflecting the evolution of ZBB. Thank you, everyone contributed in it.
Thank you so much, Muhammad. Andreas, any commentaries from your side, please?
Yes, that it removes fat from the budget is an interesting term, I would say. If that is happening with ZBB also on my body, then I would use it immediately. So I would say helping creating a flexible planning process, that is very, very true. And we already thought about that and talked about that making better decision with more agility and speed is that one, we are moving from traditional FP&A to the modern FP&A, and ZBB is supporting that process.
Thank you so much for your commentary, and thank you everyone for voting. So let us close the polling question and let us move to the next session. Ekaterina, if you can close the polling question, and let us move to the next session, which is about how technology can help us. Andreas, welcome, and the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you very much, Larissa. Let's join directly into the first slide. And so I would like to talk a little bit about what kind of technology we want to use for topics like ZBB. We also talked about that last time when we talked about rolling forecast. It's all about agility, flexibility in our enterprise performance management. That is what we need. And again, I want to start with the typical factors that causes our customers challenges, like the global environment, ongoing globalization, and exponential digitalization requires an maximum increase of speed of change. In addition to that, business impact like global competition needs a continuous adoption of your business model. We have a lot of data, and data is increasing exponentially, but always normally in data silos. And most of the data is finance focused, so transactional. And the one other thing is that regarding the decision and planning processes is very time consuming. So a lot of our, I would say, customers, when we start talking with them, are still using Excel as a basis for the budgeting and planning process, and that is of course not anymore possible if you want to go into a kind of driver-based modern budgeting and planning approach. So it's very time consuming and error prone, and that is increasing management challenges because no speed, agility, collaboration, everything what you need cannot be done with Excel. So you need an enterprise performance management. So on the next slide, we will see why flexibility and agility is required for zero-based budgeting, because the management of a company has not changed. You start with building up your strategic plans, then you're creating financial plans out of that, you're creating operational plans, you're running your operations, then you report on that, you're analytic and that, and you do performance and optimization. The only thing what has changed is that this circle has increased speeding up and is really driving much faster. In the past, finance or FP&A had a strong finance focus, and that is focus on financial planning and financial data. Today, the departments along the whole value chain, and we talked about the value creation, and must be integrated if you want to understand the impact of different activities on your results. So finance data need to be combined with sales, procurement, HR, supply chain. The impact on the planning is yet you need to have a collaborative approach, and we heard that already from our from the speakers before. So not on every department should have an individual tool, but all should work aligned. And in addition to that, I would say in the last months, years, artificial intelligence, machine learning gives you a helping hand in analyzing granular data, because what you cannot do is with a manual Excel approach is need to analyze all the granular data which you need to analyze. So that's very clear. So when you have more agility and speed, we see on the next slide that you can make better decisions. And when we go, next slide, please, we go back into the history of budgeting, planning, and FP&A. Then we will, I don't know, 25 years ago or 27 years ago when I started in enterprise performance management. Interesting enough, there was one person in the company who decided about the budget. There was about 10% more or less, 10% less costs. And then we had a function called splashing, and this splashing function then allocated the top number to all the lower numbers or lower levels based on last year or on the seasonality from last year. That was a function which was incredibly nice and used by everybody. Then we moved into the traditional FP&A with annual planning, quarterly forecasting, but also it top down and bottom up. So workflows are coming into play, and which drive then the top down and bottom up plans. But what we want to do now in the new FP&A area, and zero-based budgeting is part of the new FP&A area, we want to come from annual planning to continuous planning. We want to have a platform for strategic and operational plans, not only data silos and disparate systems. We want to, instead of top down, bottom up, and we will see this especially in zero-based budgeting, we want to have driver-based simulation, driver-based planning. We want to replace our manual forecast with a driver-based automated driver-based plan, and we want to hopefully augment with predictive forecasting and machine learning. So when we look at the next slide, how a modern enterprise performance management platform supports the entire journey to digitalization, then we see here 3 different maturity levels. And whatever you look, in which maturity model you look, that is the one which we are using normally, but there's also the maturity model from the FP&A board. At the end, every time we are talking about driver-based planning. So when we start at the lowest maturity level, where a lot of people are trying to automate their planning, forecasting, and try to get the spreadsheet chaos under control and increase efficiency, then they are moving into collaboration with different departments. That is what we need definitely for zero-based budgeting. And at the end, we want to come to this driver-based model, which will be supported by the enterprise performance management platform and things like artificial intelligence inside of it. So zero-based budgeting and enterprise performance management platform on the next slide, you see how many ZBB modules we can think about. It's about cross-margin, general and administrative expenses, workforce expenses, fully automated balance sheets, module interlinkages, etc. And it's not just operational planning or financial planning. It's not just the financial numbers, but also about the non-statistical drivers. Zero-based budgeting has a wider coverage, and enterprise performance management provides a unified platform that brings about the synchronization in these processes, which you see here, and components. Each of these lines items can have a driver-based model by itself. And when you look at about how many detailed driver-based models we have, then it's very, very clear that you need an enterprise performance management platform for that, because this cannot be handled, or it's very, very time-consuming, very hard to handle that in Excel. So when we are now know that we need an enterprise performance management platform, then we can look at the next slide, how we would like to deploy it, because there are a lot of different deploy mechanisms. If we want to use it on premise, we want to do it in the cloud, etc. But when you think big, start small, scale quickly, that is something which I think it's one of the topics, especially in our times. We need to scale quickly. So changes need to be done very fast. We must have a vision very big, but we need to start small and we need to evolve in phases. So, and we have to do it with any business function. So integrated planning for finance, sales, HR, sales and operations. We want to have fast solutions deployment, so achieve fast time to value, and we want to run the business, the solutions to run by the business, because they are the ones who are owning the experience. Then self-service, flexible analytics, We have continuous forecasting and planning, which we already talked about last year, and I think last time. And I think zero-based budgeting is a perfect companion of a rolling forecast. And we have what we also want to have, and we also saw that in the proposal from, or in the slide decks from Mohamed, is that you need to have this powerful data integration to make sure that you can collect all the data which you need to work on. Then we have a choice of public or private cloud, because at the end, if you think about all of these topics, the only solution, and you want to go into driver-based approach, you want to use AI, you want to use predictive planning, predictive forecasting, predictive analytics. And if you would like to use that, there's no other way, from my point of view, than going into the cloud. So when we look at the next slide, new cloud-based enterprise performance management solutions offers you the opportunity to modernize and transform your planning and to enable more speed and agility to the digital enterprise. So with this, what we say, cloud-based enterprise performance management, you can drive more efficiency. You have the automation included, the integration, and better result quality. And here's how we're doing that. So when you look at the next slide, we empower finance and the business function. It all starts by moving the ownership of the EPM solution from IT over to finance. That is not happening a lot in our in the Middle East, but that's a key thing. And the business function and empowering the business process owners to design planning, forecasting, and reporting solutions. So make sure the enterprise performance management platform gives you the capability to design your planning, forecasting, and reporting solution by yourself. So when we look at the next slide, we see the evolve of the planning of the digital enterprise, because it should be integrated, collaborative, and augmented with automated prediction and simulations. This increases planning efficiency, quality, and helps identify the best paths to take advantage of new opportunities or adapt risk quickly. And at the end, it's all about the user experience, which we see on the next slide, that finally the modern planning touches many users across the business. So we know that we have to collaborate, we have to communicate with all the users in the different departments. And that is what we are doing in many different locations. And since the pandemic, we know people are sitting together in their home office. They need to collaborate with each other, and that they are doing it via web. Sometimes they're on the road, they're doing it via mobile, they're doing via online, offline spreadsheets. So there's a lot of ways to communicate with the system. And when we look at our last slide, the new requirements for planning in the digital enterprise is that, so there are so many requirements that modern planning and enterprise performance management solutions have to master. So a legacy on-premise EPM system can simply not keep up with the demands of planning for the digital enterprise. So that my idea or my experience is that with cloud-based real-time financial systems for that financial planning and analysis, the business today can take a modern approach to zero-based budgeting and compile the necessary data for such a budgeting plan with a single click. It makes it easier to assign responsibilities, and we already saw that in one of the presentations in the last presentation, that the modernization and the enterprise performance management help you to go into zero-based budgeting. So even if the data comes from different departments and business units, it can be analyzed in seconds, which is very important. Cloud-based financial systems, for example, enable operational units and individual cost centers to participate in zero-based budgeting together with the finance department. And that is exactly what we would like to have. The budgeting, planning, and forecasting across the entire organization becomes seamless. And that is a very important point. So properly executed, the planning of zero-based budgeting can prove to be a valuable strategy step that helps company to make smarter decisions and will be supported by a modern enterprise management platform. Thank you very much. Modern enterprise performance management means also modern communication technology.
Um,
Hello, Larissa. Hello, Hans.
yes, I'm here. Technology is very important, as we can see from the problems that we may have. I can feel that Hans already here. And Hans, can you comment on this?
You want to comment?
If not, Hans, while you're sorting this out, Andreas, it's an excellent presentation. Thank you so much. And what I want to say from my own experience, so traveling the world at all our 27 chapters, the problem number one always been zero-based budgeting is very time-consuming. Obviously, the modern technology removes this. So I would like to ask all the panelists to switch on the cameras, and we will start quick commentaries, please. And can we start from you, Clara? What is your commentary on this presentation?
Yep, sure, Larissa. Yeah, so thanks a lot for the great presentation, Andres. I think it's very interesting because what you have kind of shown is that as we know, ZBB encompasses now beyond just finance. It is the entire organization, and with that, it brings so many different stakeholders, so many different kind of potential options and models that we have that it actually makes it a fairly complicated and complex way of how we can deal with it. So certainly having a system is going to help a lot because the sheer amount of database, the sheer amount of different kind of driver-based scenarios that could happen will really be something that, I think just Excel itself is not going to be fully capturing it easily. And also maintaining it in the future is going to be hard as we keep talking about the agility and the constant changing environment. So it's good to know that, that there are options out there from a technology point of view in order to help us in this kind of management of it. Thanks for sharing.
Thank you, Clara.
Thank you so much. I would like to ask Mohammed to comment.
Thank you, Larissa, and thank you everyone for that great presentations. I believe the ZBB budgeting starting from the mindset, as mentioned by Clara and all the other presenters, that it started with the mindset. We have to change our mindset from being just controlling expenses and controlling our OPEX to move our role to the whole organization, understanding the whole value chain, understanding the whole business model, and partnering with all functions. We have to leave and move away from our desks and spend quality time with our business partners, spend quality time with our commercial team, spend quality time with all functions in order to understand exactly the drivers of our business. This is, I believe, the success factor for ZBB. And I would like to leave the floor to Anders.
So I think Akshat, you are the next in line.
I think Andres, first of all, thank you. I think technology is the solid foundation to have a successful ZBB implementation. If you want to do it properly, have all those processes of monthly routines, benchmarking, and so on, it'll be very inefficient for FP&A to manage this in Excel. So having consolidated databases, allowing you to do a lot of those routines in an automated way is almost like a first step to do that. If you don't do that, the cultural mindset will also not come because people will treat ZBB as a burden. So they really go hand in hand, and completely agree with your points in the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Akshat. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, everyone. And thank you for your commentaries, and thank you for your great presentation, Andreas. Let us go to the next polling question. And I would like to ask Ekaterina to launch this for us, please. And the next polling question, it's about the role of technology. So if we open it, Ekaterina, please can you help me? In your view, what is the most significant benefit of the ZBB process? It's the previous polling question. If we can go to the last one, please. the last one about the role of technology. Please, can you start voting when you see this question? And I'm sorry for this technical issue. So this is the reminder for us, the role of technology. So if you decide today to implement ZBB process, what would your current system and processes support it? Yes, they will. No, they will not. A simple process in Excel will be enough for us. Please, can you continue to vote? Just a few seconds, and we will close the polling question, and I will ask our panelists to comment on this. So if we can close the polling question, and if we can share the results, please. So you can see the results. 28% of you say that no, you don't have any system that supports. 59% wonderful, yes, there are systems, and 13% think that everything could be done in Excel. Andreas, your commentary.
Thanks very much, Larissa. Astonishing high value of yes, they will. I'm really happy about that because it shows that changes are necessary and that people have are working on it. Okay, no, they will not. They might have other options which they are using for instead of zero-based budgeting, and the simple process in Excel will be enough for us. I think that is very optimistic approach on my view.
Absolutely. Thank you for this. And Mohammed, what would be your view on this? Mohammed? I can see that, Mohammed, do you see anything that you would like to share with us as a result of this?
Sorry, I had just technical. Yes, I believe 6% is it's a good percentage, which is reflecting the evolution of ZBB, but we still have 30% as an areas for improvement. I believe once we have the digital transformations implemented across different organizations, this will help us to move to and increase the percentage. So it's all about changing the mindset and also implementing the right technology and digital transformation in order to have implementing the BBB across the whole organizations.
Fantastic. So the conclusion is that technology is important, and without technology, it would be very difficult for us actually to keep the ZBB process going. Now, please, if you can close the polling question, Ekaterina, and I would like to ask all the panelists to join me for the Q&A session. We have a lot of questions, and let us start the process. So please, all of you, if you can switch on the cameras. And the first question is to you, Clara. A very interesting question, in fact. How do you feel ZBB can help with successful implementation of rolling forecast?
Thanks for the question. How do I feel that it is a successful implementation? I think the success really lies in those KPIs, as well as how the organization is actually embracing it. Because, you know, while the KPIs is a measure of it, it's not necessarily a full reflection of the mindset behavior, because as we talk about ZBB is a mindset, so you can't really capture, you know, the mindset. But once you see that the organization is all embracing it, everybody is taking the KPIs more seriously. We are having the weekly review, and everybody is engaged during those sessions. The creativity of how to develop new ideas to run the business, you know, as all the different circumstances changes and how people are reacting to it. I think these are all the signs of how it is going to be a successful one. And the more people are embracing it, the more people are engaged into the whole discussion and session with you. What will happen is that you will soon find that the KPIs will just constantly be either met or very close to being met. And even if they are not met, there will always be new ideas coming along on what else do we do, how do we do differently. And this is the whole idea of ZBB, that people are constantly engaged, and you got the top management buy-in, you got the organizational changes, and you constantly evolve and are looking into new different ways to run the business. Hopefully
excellent. Thank you, Clara. The next question is to you, Akshat. It's well-known situation when your company had problems, and there were some discussions in press that actually one of the reasons it was ZBB that demotivated people. Akshat, how would you answer this question? So do you still use ZBB in the company? Would you say that the company learned from the messages?
Yeah, look, I think this is what I was trying to say in my presentation. The way you implement ZBB about being completely cost out can cause problems if you decide not to reinvest that money into your brands, in our case, into our brands and into our products. And it's something that we have really changed over the last 3 years. We have really focused on reinvesting all the efficiencies that we've been gaining on the simple packages to our marketing and R&D packages. If you limit yourself to only cost cut and taking everything to the bottom line, you will face issues as a company. And this is something that we evolved as a company and are changing.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Akshat. The next question is to you, Muhammad. It's about business partnering in ZBB. Great example how ZBB can facilitate business partnering and how business partnering can help with ZBB. In your view, how you can organize business partners, how you can make people like and buy in the ZBB process?
Yeah, I believe that's a great question. First of all, that's a great question. I believe business partnering starts first with building relationships. So we cannot partner with our functions, people who cannot share their business insights without building relationships. So we're starting with building relationships, number one. Number two, understanding our business very well, and this is our admission ticket to any decision-making table. So understanding business very well. And number three, add and create value to your organization. Show them that you are creating value. So leveraging building relationships, leveraging understanding business, and having the right technology in order to drive business insights. I believe those three combination are the key enablers to be a true business partners. Understanding business, building relationships, leveraging technology in order to provide insights to your business to create a value. Once you create value, understanding everything, I believe you can easily implement the ZBB budget.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Muhammad. Andreas, the next question is to you. It's about technology for ZBB. Would you say that the company needs a special technology for ZBB, or is it the classical FP&A system that can help? What is your view?
So again, I haven't understood it completely.
Do you believe that there is a requirement for new FP&A system? Is FP&A system helping with ZBB, or do you need a special technology, Andreas?
So we have special enterprise performance management technologies, which are very much fit for all the different methodologies you would like to implement. There are a lot of these enterprise performance management on the market. I think it's about what you are requiring from your platform. And if you write it down, the requirements you have, especially in terms of data collection, in terms of collaboration, in terms of driver based, and how you can do that is then guiding you very easily to the right platform for you. And of course that should be guided by the business team of the company, while we normally also see that IT has a kind of gatekeeping functionality, but mainly the system should support the business function, and they should be the ones who are setting up the requirements.
Thank you so much, Andreas. Thank you, everyone. Let me conclude this Q&A session. I can see that Hans is back with the technology. So Hans, would you like to say a few conclusive thoughts, please?
Yeah, absolutely. Can you hear me, Larissa?
Yes, we can hear you very well.
Yeah, no, apologies, but there we go. This is how things work. So yeah, no, I think just to sum up what you guys have said, you know, we've had.
Sorry.
Yes, so I can see that technology problem going on. I think it's something to do with internet, not with our technology. So what I want to say as a conclusion, we call this a new age of ZBB, and today's session demonstrated that it's definitely a new age of zero-based budgeting for FP&A. Thank you so much, the panelists, for demonstrating all of this. And thank you very much to all of our participants for being part of this, for all your votes and for questions. Those questions that we didn't manage to ask, we will do after the meeting. And what I want to say that let us say thank you so much to our technology sponsor today, GEDEX. Thank you for supporting us. And finally, just some upcoming digital events we would like to invite you. So you can see all the information here, all the links are at this presentation. And finally, let us stay connected, let us continue to share, and let us implement ZBB with the steps, small steps. Thank you so much, panelists. Thank you so much, GEDEX, and thank you so much, all our participants. With this, we are closing the webinar. All the best. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Stay safe.
Thank you.
Thank you.